Thank you very much. I will call the meeting to order and ask it to stand if you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Our first order of business is public comment. Does anyone wish to speak on something not on tonight's agenda? Seeing no one, I will move on. We don't have any recognition tonight, do we? We do not. And we'll go to discussions. We'll start with our student rep, Natalia. How are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you. So for the MEC, for past events, the MEC's PTA had a very successful Cookies with Santa family event on December 21st. Students were engaged in many holiday crafts, games, decorated cookies, and took a picture with Santa. They will also be hosting the Scholastic Book Fair the week of February 3rd and will be scheduling a family night as well. Teachers will be beginning their mid-year assessments to measure student progress from the beginning of the school year. These assessments are used to see the academic and social growth students make since September. Preschool progress notes will be going out at the end of January. Preschool and kindergarten registration will open for September 2020. All interested applicants should apply online through the district website. Preschool registration is open until February 11th at 3 p.m. and the public lottery drawing will take place on February 12th at noon. Kindergarten registration is now open until March 13th, 2020, and appointments will be made through our central registration office with Mrs. Goodine. For the HBB for past events, they were very successful in hosting their second annual STEAM Week, and for upcoming events, the next round of after-school clubs will begin shortly. Sign-up sheets will be sent out to parents soon. On Friday, January 24th, there will be a Spirit Day. Students are encouraged to deck out in their Berkland's best gear. For the Nichols Middle School for past events, the NMS Music Department was very successful in hosting the orchestra, band, and chorus winter concerts this past week. The students did an amazing job. This week's the December Roar Award winners were announced. Roar Award is an acknowledgement students get for being respectful, on time, display a positive attitude, and who are responsible. The goal of this award is to recognize students who take care of basic expectations in class, but are good citizens and role models in the community. For upcoming events, there is an introductory meeting held on January 14th for anyone interested in auditioning or being a crew member of the show In the Hood. January 17th, there will be a half-day hat day. Proceeds for the $1 donation will go towards Dana-Farber. On Tuesday, January 28th, there will be a special Tiger Tuesday. January is a National Hobby Month. On January 28th, students will be encouraged to dress in a fashion that highlights their favorite hobby. For MHS, for past events, on Friday, December 20th, the Alumni College Fair was held in the MHS gym. This is an event where past Middleborough students return to inform students about the colleges they are attending or have attended. For upcoming events, this Saturday, January 11th, members of MHS Student Council will be attending the Massachusetts Association of Student Council's annual Unified Bocce Tournament at Walpole High School to be fans in the stands as they cheer on our athletes and their partners. On Friday, January 10th at 7 p.m., Saturday, January 11th at 7 p.m., and Sunday, January 12th at 2 p.m., the MHS Music Program will be putting on their annual musical production. This year's show is Shrek. Tickets are $10. On January 15th, members of Middleborough Student Council will be attending CMASC, a regional conference at Foxborough Regional Charter School. On February 1st, members of Middleborough Student Council will be attending MASC Unified Dance at the Special Olympic Headquarters in Marlborough. This is an event to celebrate inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Natalia? Mr. Hill?
Just wondering, how long does it take you to put together all those?
Well, I usually email out the principals and they send me out like a list of their updates, so that's like that's just like restating what they're saying, but then I have to go through and check their bulletins and make sure that I'm not missing anything, but like maybe an hour and a half.
Cool. Oh, that's awesome. And I was just curious, you mentioned a couple things about student council members going to various things. Are you going to either of those? Your student council, right?
Yeah, well, next week I'm away, so I'm not gonna be able to go to bocce or CMASC, but I'm gonna be going to the unified dance at the Special Olympics headquarters.
Cool. All right, well, thanks for putting those together.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Talia? Talia, thank you very, very much. I do want to recognize that Mr. McCarthy's in the audience tonight, so we do like when the students come back and say hello, so I appreciate him coming back, so I want to wish him well on his first long break before he goes back for second semester.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I asked him if he was going to run for school committee, and he said no, he's got to finish up his education.
His citizenship in New York for long stretches of time will hurt that, so.
He could commute.
Yeah, exactly. The commute's a killer. Before we go into school committee members, I do want to make mention of and say congratulations to Mr. Oakley, because I know Bot received a $15,000 grant from Mass Development.
Yep.
So congratulations, Mr. Oakley.
Thank you. Yeah, we just found out, we found out actually a while ago. We were not able to say anything until today, but we just got the official kind of like fake check thing today.
Big check.
We're pretty
Big check.
excited. It's an equipment only grant, so we have some big ideas for how we could use that money to buy some really awesome equipment that could really help people move their ideas into the kind of prototyping or small scale production phase, but also we have some really cool classes coming up that'll be centered around them for the young folks in Middleborough. So yeah, thanks for the recognition. It was fun. There's a huge team behind it. I just happen to be sitting here and they're not here at the moment, but just want to acknowledge that there's a very large team of people that helped put that together. So, thanks.
No problem. And I do want to say congratulations. The enterprise is in their mix of putting out their all scholastics for the fall. And we have lots and lots of kids in various programs between golf, soccer, cross country, everything. There are lots and lots of kids, so I want to congratulate all of them. And I know I'll forget somebody, so I don't want to stop mentioning, but I'm going to ask Ryan to come at some point and talk to us about that.
Sure.
So that I don't want to forget people.
And Mr. Chair, Mr. Giovanoni's son was amongst that group, so congratulations to the Giovanoni family, certainly.
Two-time.
Does any member of the board wish to speak about anything? Mr. Giovanni?
Would you take 9C
Oh, absolutely.
early on? Because I think it's worth real upfront recognition. I think it's great.
No problem. I have a note on it, so we can do that right now if you
Yeah,
want.
we could.
Which is Mr. and Mrs. Stagliola contributed a sizable amount of money to the school lunch program to ensure that anybody who's behind is paid up. And they did. We've had a lot of people do that. The superintendent and the business manager and I have had this lengthy conversation recently about these, and time and time again, people are stepping up. The first was members of the Unitarian Church in downtown Middleborough that stepped up, and then we've been getting people over and over again. So we're really appreciative of that, and we thank them.
And there are a number that are anonymous, that wish to stay
Yeah,
anonymous.
absolutely.
Completely anonymous, and that's, we respect that,
Yep.
but we certainly appreciate it.
So that's been a great piece of information that's been coming up, and people have been going out of their way, and we really appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, Brian, too.
Mr. Chair, I always mention there are some families that need help that don't qualify for help.
Right.
And you don't really think about it, but I think the threshold is a $58,000 for a family of 4. Or is it gone up now?
It's actually gone up, and the hope is under the new reform bill
hoping.
that it actually goes down. But to put it in perspective, if two parents make minimum wage and work a 40-hour job, they do not qualify for free and reduced lunch.
It's crazy.
Which is
Insane.
unbelievable for 2 children. So that's problematic. So thankfully, as part of the new funding formulas, that piece has gone back to some of the old lines. And actually, I know because I was asked to speak at the UU Church, and part of the problem was that they took a lot of the data out, so you couldn't even look at data in the same way that you could over a period of time to see if you were getting better or getting worse or what was happening, because they changed so significantly.
And Mr. Chair, we recently had some experience with someone in our office was looking for an apartment, and a two-bedroom apartment in Middleborough minimum is $1,500, $1,600, all the way to $2,500. So those folks making minimum wage with a young family, you know, are paying $2,000 a month for a two-bedroom apartment. You know, so you know, it's expensive to live nowadays.
And whether you think you qualify or not, if you need the help, fill out the paperwork, let Rebecca in her office go through it. She'll talk to you, and it's all private. No one knows what's going on, so always fill that paperwork out and get it in there, and you
And
never
through
know.
you, Mr. Chair, we also have a very active Family Resource Center,
Right, I was just gonna say.
which is incredibly helpful to those families that are in need, especially at certain times of the year. And sometimes it comes in waves,
Yeah.
especially sort of in an agrarian community. We still have that portion of our folks that rely on that, on seasonal work. And so we want folks to know that we do have that full-time Family Resource Center, paid for through the Title I federal grant. And it's already served, I believe, 150 families in Middleborough up to date this year. So in some form or way, some manner or form.
And the other thing too is that while most of the paperwork is done at the beginning of the school year, if something happens in the family's life,
Absolutely.
somebody loses a job, something awful happens, you can still come and have that conversation with the principal, or again, the family resource person,
Yep.
and we'll work to help you and find you what you're available for and what you can do.
And it is all confidential.
Absolutely.
And it's a tough pill to swallow at times, but it is all confidential.
So don't think you have to wait until next September
Right.
to start getting help. Mr. O.
Mr. Chair, obviously it goes without saying, this is an amazing donation, and I see they're on the agenda, so they're not one of those that want their names struck from the record, but I was just curious, like logistics-wise, the Stagilola donation, what did that do to, what was the balance of student lunch debt before this, and what is it now, and what if it actually put us in the positive? What happens to that money?
Sarah. I'll let Sarah answer.
So I actually am going to be setting up a meeting with Rebecca Bagnell to go over the school lunch accounts and get the answer to that question. It's on my things to do list because I need to talk to her also about what are our policies and procedures. I know sometimes you see in the news horrible things happen where kids are made to throw out lunches, and that doesn't happen here in Middleborough. But I don't know what our policies are, so I'm going to be meeting with Rebecca, and I'll be able to better answer that question the next time I see you.
And
But
related
what-
to that, Rich, we had talked about, that's going to be a topic for our meeting, about what exactly our policies are. And
Great.
so, again, as Sarah said, you hear these stories about other districts. I think the biggest thing to remember when hearing a lot of the stories is that, for example, I think it was Cranston, Rhode Island was one that there was a considerable amount of pushback on. But Cranston, Rhode Island is a very large community, and their debt was over $100,000. And so that's why they took some actions that they did, because of the large portion of money. We're nowhere near anywhere near a large portion of money. And again, I would say for the problems that we've had people in the community step up and take care of those, which I think is fantastic. But we do want to make sure, we all understand what happens and what we're doing, and we want to make sure that we set policy for the school, and we want to make sure that it's in adherence to what we want and go from there. So,
And Mr. Chair, we do have a policy regarding that.
We do.
But also, prior to us taking back the lunch program, there had been issues. It had been brought to my attention right after, the first thing I did when I first got on this board is I went to all the cafeterias, I think I mentioned this before, all the cafeterias, all the custodians, because they know what's going on. And I actually had a 30-some-odd year veteran tell me what was going on at that time, where people were told to literally dump their food. And that person used to pull the money out of their own pocket at times, and that has happened. So it doesn't happen anymore, thank God. I was appalled at that moment. I think I went out and I called Mr. Malone and said, I just heard something horrible. What are we going to do about it? I didn't know what to do. I was just been elected. So I'm so glad that the program we have, Rebecca's great. Her office is great. The hardest thing is when we have to vote an increase on the cost of the meal, but the federal government pushes that at us.
Right, and that's been the craziest part, which is the last time, which is a couple of years ago, I think it was before you were on, Mr. Oakley, we were forced to raise our prices. We weren't at a point where we had to comply with
subsidy.
the federal government, which is an amazing
Wow.
piece for us. It wasn't that much in police.
It wasn't, but what happens if you don't, the federal government wouldn't give their subsidy side of it. So then the price would go way up.
Gotcha.
So that was, yeah. You'll be getting one of those in a few years,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Mr. Oakley again.
Sorry, I was just curious, if this number's immediately available, great. If not, I could take it offline. But what is the current cost of a one-day school lunch?
It's $2.75.
Okay.
And,
Thanks.
High school is I don't know if you get the high school lunch. High school lunch is $3 or $3.50 now. Yeah,
Okay, cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
yeah, it's gone up.
Any other questions or comments before I move on? Seeing none, Mr. Catino sent the superintendent and I a note today saying that he was unable to attend, but looks forward to attending our next meeting. So with that, I will turn it over to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, members of the audience. Thank you. Our first guest tonight is Kerry Kubaki. She is from the Champions Before and After School program, and she has willingly agreed, to come here tonight and give us an update on the establishment and the continuation of the Champions after-school program, before and after-school program, which has also included a nice, very successful holiday, all-day event, or a number of days that was open. So, Kerry, welcome.
Thank you.
Hope you're comfortable in front of a group. Certainly seems so. And please begin your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Lynch and Mrs. Singh, for allowing us to come, and the committee. We greatly appreciate being able to give you an update on the after-school program. It's definitely, when I reflect on my 2019, has been one of the highlights, being able to come to Middleborough. So I just want to quickly tell you a little bit about some of our successes and how things are going in program, and then answer any questions you may have. So we are currently in the MEC, MKG, and at HBB. We were at Nichols, but unfortunately we have moved the Nichols program.
My apologies.
Prettier. So we have moved the Nichols program to MKG until we are able to build the enrollment, just to improve the experience of the students that were using it. So there were only 2 students. This allows them to have more peer interactions and take on some leadership roles. So we hope to be back at Nichols as soon as we're able to have more children in the program. But we're really proud of the communication and the response we have had from our families. So our communication is always in person and on site. So that is actually the parent board at the HBB program. So you can expect to see that when you visit any of our programs. It shows what the curriculum is for the week, newsletter. That is where parents would sign in, sign out. It has the schedule, a little bit about the staff. And then in addition to that, all of our families receive a weekly newsletter that goes over the theme for the week, highlights what the activities will be, as well as personalized photos. Obviously, it's a little hard to leave your student at school until 6, so it helps a little bit to know that they're having a good time. So we're really big on trying to capture those moments and send those out. And then we are very proud. I oversee 7 programs, and Middleborough has the most family involvement at family nights. So it is typical for most everyone in the program to come to family night. So here's a few pictures of the Halloween party, and then there was a pumpkin exploration and painting night at the MEC. And they're both very well attended. We've had apple tasting at MKG. We've done Polar Express night, and we really do always get a very nice turnout. So we've been very happy with the sense of community and participation. Just a little bit about our curriculum. We have 5 interest areas. So we have an art center, math and construction, puzzles and games, library, and science. Each week we have a thematic unit. So fan favorites have been the Getting to Know You week, gross and gooey physiology, so we learned about our organs and our intestines. Everyone was very intrigued by that. We've also done Simple Machine Week, where we made some marshmallow catapults, so we had some STEAM activities, and they've all been fan favorites. In addition to our thematic units, we do offer clubs. So right now, the most popular is the MKG Art Club. One of our instructors there is an art teacher, so she's brought in some amazing activities for the students. And we also have a building club. And then one of our sites at the HBB, they have the Save the Turtles Club. So they are very passionate, and they may take away your straw if, if they see you using one. We have homework help, and then we just have a few pictures here. You'll see our technology on the left there that is coming out. We introduced it a little bit. There's a big training on Martin Luther King Day when we're closed, and that will be the next wave of all of our technology program. We want the kids to be creators, not consumers of technology, so a lot of thought has gone into it. So they will actually be making their own videos, making their own storybooks on it, so it's not playing games. We do try to get to the gym as much as possible, and we've been very lucky this winter that we're still able to go outside, which has been awesome. See, slime there is a big activity all the time, and that's what everyone wants because no one wants that in their house. And then also our homework center has gone very well with most of the children do complete all of their homework before going home for the evening. As Mr. Lynch was saying, we were extremely happy with our full day program. We tried it for the first time during December break. We had almost over 20 students every day, except for the day right after Christmas, so it was very well attended. Each day had a different theme. I think the favorite was summer in January, because they got to do tie-dye, and it was a big summer party, so everyone had a great time. We brought in a yoga instructor for that, so they did some mindfulness. That went really well, so that would be something we would look to bring back. We do project-based learning, so some long extended activities that have been going on. That would be more in the summer camp program, so making cookbooks, planting gardens, things like that. And we are looking forward to summer break. We are opening enrollment on the 13th of January, so we're super excited to be here for the first time, especially after how well that December break went. So we're really looking forward to that.
Excuse me, Carrie.
Yes.
One thing for the holiday breaks and the summer breaks, even if you don't participate in the before and after school, you can still participate in those programs too?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
just wanted to make sure that parents knew that.
Yes, absolutely. And then here's just some of the fun in action. So on the right, we did some marshmallow sculpture building. You had to try to support your bagel on top of it. Some cups activities. The other thing we've been really proud of is our community partnership within the schools. So we have done PTO babysitting at each school this year. We've had some great community service projects. There's one that you see there that was at HBB that was led by 2 fifth grade students. Give the Joy, and they were collecting toys for the less fortunate. Special reminder not to steal from the bins, though. We did also at MKG Veterans Day collection, so we collected over 40 bags we were able to put together for the local veterans in Middleborough, which is what they're doing there on the right. So the parents donated, and then the kids came through, and they were made a basket for each, a bag for each veteran that was delivered. So it's a little, like I said, quick snapshot of kind of what's been going on in program, and especially looking forward to that summer program. So if anyone has any questions.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this program will also be open on February vacation?
Yes.
Tuesday through
February
Friday?
8th. Mhm.
And April vacation?
Correct.
The Tuesday through Friday. And also, you have plans for an extensive summer program, which will be held at the Berkland Complex, the Mayflower Complex?
Correct.
The complex, I should say, probably.
Yes.
Which will include activities in the pool
It will, yes.
with a lifeguard.
Yes, so we do have to hire a certified lifeguard, and once we do, we are able to hopefully use the pool. So that'll be a really nice.
Mr. Oakley?
Thanks for the update. I was wondering if you can talk a little bit more about some examples of the STEM programming that you guys are offering, or STEAM, but I'm more interested in the STEM part of it, yeah.
So some examples have been, Simple Machines Week was big on that all week. So they did build catapults that we shot whose marshmallow could go the furthest across the room. There was a Save Fred where you had to build a structure that would take a gummy worm, remove your gummy worm. We've done protect your egg, where you cannot crack your egg. You know, you have to make a structure so we can drop it and have it stay. And then when we are going to add our Kibo robot after that Martin Luther King Day, and we'll also be adding the iPads at that time, and a program called Strawbees. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but it's basically straws with a whole bunch of cool cards and activities. It's really a whole STEM kit, so.
Cool. Could I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Can you tell me more about that next wave that you mentioned after Martin Luther King Day?
Sure, so that's when all of our staff will be formally trained on all of our technology pieces. So we did roll them out early. We had to take them back because we do want the kids to be creators, not consumers. So we're doing another round of training to make sure that we just don't want, you can play on an iPad at home. That's not really something you need to come to after school for. So we want to make sure that we're setting it up in a way that is still engaging with other kids, that you're creating something and not just sitting there playing on something that's already been created.
Sure.
So it is a pretty extensive 6-hour training where they're going to get to be they're going to be the kids and get to participate and create their own games and stuff, and then we will roll it out immediately after that.
That sounds great.
Programs.
Cool.
Other questions? Mrs. Stevens?
So I was just wondering, how are things going? I know the middle school has been kind of lower attendance.
Yeah.
But how are the other schools' attendances I know we had some projections from you. How are we matching up to that?
So we're a little below where we had hoped to be, but we are in the 20s at all the at the 2 elementary schools. The MEC is in the teens. So we're doing pretty well. We do increase enrollment all the time, though. So we have had 4 students join since we've come back from break. So literally, really all the time at this point. We're adding a couple students a week.
Great. So that's 20 each, HEB,
Yes.
Brooklyn.
Yep,
And then
morning and afternoon separate, so about in the 20s in the morning.
20s.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds reasonable.
Other question?
And Mr. Chair, through you, myself and Mrs. Siki have met with Kerry and James, the regional manager, a couple of occasions, and a lot of email back and forth about the progress of the program. Kerry's great at keeping us informed of what's going on, receptive of any emails we send her, and responsive. So it's been a very satisfactory relationship thus far.
And Carrie, I'll tell you that from the parents I know who attend, they've all had great things to say and very complimentary on your staff and all the things that you guys do.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Mr. O? Oh, Mr. Stevens, go ahead.
So I just want to make another comment about, I think the communication piece that you mentioned was really nice, because my kids attended years ago, and it would have been nice to have that, like email or a newsletter or whatever you send out. I think that's a really good idea.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. O?
Mr. Chair, I hope you can appreciate, I'm trying to break up my questions a little bit.
I understand.
So I was wondering, can you talk more about you mentioned maybe some sort of a robot thing coming after the Martin Luther King break?
Yes.
What is that?
It's a KiboBot, I think it's called. It's a programming. So it's introduction to computer programming. So you arrange your cubes and you scan them, and you're programming the robot to turn, to go back up. He can be programmed to bowl, is the most popular. So if you set up the pins, you can, program him to go and knock them down. He can hold markers in his arms, and you can program him to spin like a spirograph.
Awesome.
So he's a lot of fun.
Awesome. And just one more follow-up. Are there any kind of in the pipeline things that you guys are thinking about for some of the STEAM stuff that you want to bring in the future?
Well, we are always developing that program. So we do have the iPads, so we are able to keep downloading and changing things in and out on them. I don't know. I'll be going away to San Diego at the end of the month, so I could probably answer that question at our next review a little bit better. I don't want to give misinformation, but
Okay.
we're always working on investing in that program. So.
Great. Thank you.
Perhaps partnering with BorrowBot.
Yeah, we would love to partner with anyone. Come on down.
Any other questions? Well, Carrie, we appreciate, sorry.
I don't know if it's really for her or for us. We have enrollment numbers around 20 per as compared to last year. How does that match up?
It's down a little bit, there's no doubt about it.
A little bit?
Yeah, and the YMCA continues to have their program that
So
they have.
What was our number last year per school about?
We were around
50s?
30 in
30?
each of the elementaries, and the same at MEC, and the same at Nichols was 2 or 3 kids
No, the reason
So-
why I was wondering, because then that directly goes to revenue projections, of course.
Absolutely.
So, we may not be at that upper end that we were hoping for, but, okay.
I would
always-
also add, Brian, that there's, for example, I understand completely what you're saying, but there was also the piece, the difference is also that the holiday weeks
Yeah,
are different.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the structure's different than it has been in the past, too.
right. Oh, I think the program itself is awesome.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, I
I know,
mean,
I understand.
I love the program because it's I'm not putting anything down, but this seems like an awesome educational program after school. The creators, not consumers piece is always, to me, when I hear that, that just clicks and says, this is where they're looking. This is what I want to see people looking at. It's not just, plunk them down in front of the TV and let them go. That's not what's happening, which is great. And then I look at the revenue side. That's the two things, educational piece and then the revenue piece. So I just like to make sure it's viable for these guys, because if it's not, then they come back to us and say, well, I don't want that to happen. So it sounds like it's there, and it's growing, which is good.
That's the important part.
Yep, thank you.
You said you were done, Mr. Oakley.
I don't think I said that. I was just wondering, are there, do you guys do surveys of the parents? I remember
yes.
in your bid, the thing that I liked the sound of was that there was a third-party review process.
Yes, so we do partner with Gallup.
Yep.
And we do have a Gallup survey. So that survey has, everyone has taken that survey in early October. So we should get the results soon, usually at the end of January, early February. So our next review, we would be able to see what the the parents' feedback on that.
Excellent.
And then they share that with the administration.
Oh,
so-
yes, absolutely.
So probably at the next review, we find out about that information.
Yeah, as soon as that information is available, we can certainly forward it to the school committee.
Great. Yeah, that would be great. I think that's it. Yeah. I'm not committing, though.
But I'm taking you as anybody else? Carrie, thank you for coming.
Oh,
thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Really appreciate it.
Carrie, I think you brought some folks with you, didn't you?
Yes, we have our directors are here from the MEC, Miss Lindsay, and Miss Cassie from the MEC, Miss Lindsay from MKG. We said it backwards.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Next on my agenda is Mr. Paul Brannigan, who is in the audience as usual, but will present tonight his annual Middleborough High School Program of Studies update. Welcome, Mr. Brannigan.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Happy New Year, Paul.
Lots going on at the high school, Mr. Brannigan.
Here is. It's busy times. So good evening, everyone. Tonight I bring before you the changes for the 2021 yearbook program studies. And let me just check. So over the last many months, the school has been working on doing the updates of the program of studies. So what I want to share with you tonight and for your consideration and your approval is the program of studies for next year. So one of the very first things that the faculty does is begins the process of organizing and really reflecting on the work that they are doing and really making sure that the updates reflect really our programming. Just a thank you to the stakeholders who helped bring this book together for you tonight. Also, part of the design of our book is really to accentuate the student artwork in the schools. So just I wanted to make sure, just to give credit and thanks to the many students whose artwork will be presented in the program of studies this year, which is such a nice touch. One of the very first pieces that we do as a leadership team is to make sure that when we begin the analysis of their particular program of studies, is to really make sure we go back and look at the district mission and in the vision of that, the core values, beliefs, and learning expectations of the high school, as well as our school-wide learning expectations. So again, that all of our decision-making goes back to those documents as well, to make sure that what we're offering and what we're doing goes back to those important guiding documents. And again, our essential question. So this is a question that guides us from year to year. So this is the question that the faculty, when they are designing and editing and making updates in their programming, that again, it goes back to this question of how can Middleborough High School provide instructional resources in personalized instruction that will allow all students to acquire, hone, demonstrate, and transfer the skills they need in order to be college and career ready. So in many cases, you'll have courses that they must be taking. So we know that it's the core of the programming. But at the same as that time, really ultimately the descriptions and really what are they going to be doing in the class that goes back to answering that question. And again, the district improvement plan, we just wanted to make sure that was included because that is one of the guiding principles, especially looking at that first standard of the culture of achievement and innovation. Our school-wide learning expectations, what is interesting, and just as a note for all of you as well as the community, that we will begin the process of changing these. That these have been our expectations for quite a period of time with our NEASC accreditation, and we will actually officially begin the process again this spring in preparing for 2024. Just note the fact as part of the program of studies and the requirements is that we'll be continuing with the community service requirement for all students in grades 9 through 12. And so I just wanted to make sure that was made known, that we have seen a lot of success with the program. And this will be the first graduating class with the class of 20 where the expectation has been placed. Criteria for graduation and college entrance. I put this slide in for you because if you've had an opportunity to look through the booklet, the entire front end really talks about college readiness and really what are the expectations and the pathways and such. And one of the things that is done through our guidance department every year is they do a full analysis of this document to make sure that it's current. So they're looking at the trends of really what the state university system is doing and really what are they looking for to make sure that that document is really reflective of really what programming they should be thinking about doing. We still are maintaining the 136 credits for graduation. And ultimately just ensuring the fact that our expectations for graduation are still following in line with really the college entrance expectations as well. And really what's just kind of exciting is that this program of studies actually begins the reflective document of the new high school. So many of the courses that you're going to start to see in the program of studies tonight for your approval is really the beginnings of many of the content areas beginning to engage the new building. And the goal would be that these would be courses we're hoping that we'll be able to run and offer in the spring semester of 21. To take you through the content areas, in English, there is no major changes that are in this program of studies for ELA. However, what's important to note is you're going to see this through almost all of the content areas this year, is that of a real analysis of their curriculum frameworks and how it engages in their course offerings. English in particular, with the changes of the MCAS testing, if you remember back in the fall when we gave our presentation of that, English has gone back and done a lot of a realignment of really what that looks like in a grade 9 through 12 experience, especially in grades 9 and 10. So I just wanted to make sure that was known, especially the redesign of English 1 and 2 as reflective in the script of the program of studies. In mathematics, again, that it's looking at, in many ways, just their curriculum frameworks and making sure that their pathways in math are in line with really what the state is requiring and saying as well. We also ended up doing, through the work of Vicki Miles, the department chair, you're going to notice the fact that we identified through the opened and closed notations in the program of studies, that was really done purposely, because when you look at actually how our students are engaging in math, so many times our students are doubling up in a year in math classes, that we needed to make sure that they weren't taking a course that they haven't taken yet, or they're taking something concurrently that they really can't take yet until they have that foundational course done. So that's why in the program of studies, you see where it's open and closed, and it will identify what classes it is or what sections it is, simply because we want to make sure that those pathways run smooth for the students in mathematics. Of course,
Paul,
please.
that open and close piece and the doubling up, that was also a point that was causing us problems with the senior year.
Right.
With some of the more advanced kids, which they had, if you will, essentially taken all the math they
Right.
needed to.
Right.
And they, we know in some cases, kids weren't getting into state schools because they hadn't taken a math
Right.
their senior year.
That's right. So there's a it is ensuring the fact that the four-year pathway is in check, so that is allowing those seniors to make sure that they have a math class in grade 12 as well, absolutely. The courses that are removed, Math Strategies 3, but it's really just been rebranded and renamed, and you see the math topics, formerly known as, we give it its official title. This Math Strategies program, or Math Topics, is for juniors only. So these are the students who have been identified through their MCAS at the end of grade 10 that we need that remediation to make sure that they can pass the retests. So we just kind of rebranded it, especially with the new assessment, to make sure the fact that those standards are really robust for those juniors there. And also, one of the things that we're redesigning is really the engagement of the Calculus BC. AP, that we do it in a full year experience, and we also do it in a half-year experience as well. And through the work in the math department, that they really decided the fact that it was really unnecessary to do that, and that through especially the work of Mr. Thoreau, who is the Calculus BC teacher, he really felt that we could be doing this a little bit differently as well. And the numbers of students who were taking that BC Calculus was never really a large group of students anyway. So we made the decision to have it just run strictly as the full year experience. And the new course is just one new elective that they offered is the History of Mathematics, which is a 9 through 12 elective that will begin in the fall. In History and Social Studies, through the work of Mr. Osgood and the department chair here, Mrs. Gowen Chung, they've begun the real work of unpacking the new state frameworks for history and social sciences. So some of the nuances in the descriptions, especially in world history and U.S. history, are really beginning the reflective pieces of really the new state framework as well. So there's a lot more work to be done there, but this is the entry year for that shift in the curriculum. What's really exciting, I'm going to go to the deleted course and then go to the new course. So last year you approved a human geography course, which was the stepping stone to really what I'm bringing to you tonight. So last year we had offered at an honors level elective for grades 9 through 12 of human geography. And that was really recommended as we were beginning the process of engaging and implementing our next advanced placement program. So this year, starting in the fall, we would like to be offering AP Human Geography to students. What you'll also notice is the fact of our beginning to kind of distribute our AP programs a little bit differently. Through a lot of work of Mr. Osgood and Mr. Smith, who will be the AP teacher, that this is one course that has been recommended for 9th grade. So it is our hope, the fact that we'll be able to engage some 9th graders, really the high-performing ones, to potentially engage in that first AP experience. The entry level of AP Human Geography allows for that age to be able to enter it. And so we're really excited about the potential for that course as well. So because we're offering at the AP level, the honors course will now be deleted from the program of studies.
And would that be in conjunction with the U.S. history, or the, not 9th graders?
World history. Yeah, it will not, good question, Mr. Giannovone. It will not replace the world history requirement. It's just going to be an added course. Yep. If a student wanted to take it. So one of the things that we're doing over the next many weeks, and I'll share with you towards the end of really our timeline, but through the collaboration of the history department at the high school and the history department here, that we're going to begin doing some marketing of what AP Human Geography is, because this literally will be the very first time we've ever offered an AP experience to grade 9. So that way there can be some materials that will go home for those interested students, as well as the engagement of families with questions and a little bit about what the program will be.
Amazing program. I was watching that program go through that class, and the things you learn that I think everyone could use.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that's a great class.
So in science, technology, and pre-engineering, one of the courses that we are eliminating this for next year is mobile applications, and it's just because with all the changes with technology that we keep redefining those electives in technology, and the work of that we can be absorbing in the other courses that we're doing. So it became a decision that that was a course that needed to come off the chart. The updated courses, you're going to also notice that advanced placement biology is showing grades 10 through 12. We've done a lot of research with College Board nationally of really what programs are offered at what grades, because we were offering so many advanced placement courses that they become really top heavy in grades 11 and 12. So one of the things that we're trying to do is begin to do some experiments of really looking at how could you engage certain advanced placement courses in earlier timeframes of the student's high school journey. So what is one of the things that we've started to explore or have researched is really offering AP biology to grade 10. Because if you take students who have just finished biology in grade 9, they have got that fundamental skill potentially that they could go right in to grade 10 AP biology. It does not replace the requirement of chemistry, but they could do it concurrently at the same time. So we'll see where we go with that, but we're going to see what that will look like with the engagement of grade 10. Also, there's been a lot of work done this fall of a better alignment between the math courses and the science courses because they end up using there's so much overlap between those two disciplines, the use of algebra and chemistry and so on, that we needed to make sure the fact that those two pathways within those two content areas are really complementing each other. So that is some of the work that's been done in reflective and just some of the programming. For example, in chemistry, we needed to make sure that it really enhanced the Algebra 1 requirement in chemistry so that all of our 9th graders that take Algebra 1, they would now making sure that they're ready for chemistry in grade 10. Advanced placement computer science principles is now accepted as a grade 12 mathematics course, which is new for next year. So for students who are doing the AP computer science course, they can now use that as their 12th grade math if they so chose. And also really exciting, and this is a testament of the new building, is that through the work of Mr. Pelletier, that for all of the 9th graders that would wanting to be part of TV production for years, they had to apply. And because the reasoning they had to apply was because we were transporting them from the high school to here to the middle school. So you could only fit so many students in the van. But now that we're moving to the high school, there's no need to have an application anymore. So it will be an open enrollment now for TV production 1. So we have to do a little bit of work to see how that will play itself out, especially in the transition from the current building to the new school. But the goal would be the fact that there'll be no application process for this next upcoming year. And that's a thanks to Mr. Pelletier for taking that on. Project Lead the Way, we're really excited that this program has really flourished at the high school. You see in blue the 2 brand new courses that will be added into the pathway for the biomedical science and the engineering pathway for next year. So for the students that are finishing up this year, the human body systems, they'll be moving into medical interventions in this fall. And this is the year that's really quite exciting because they get their lab coats this year, next year as part of that experience. And then in the engineering program, we're entering year 3, and this is the civil engineering and architecture. So those students that are entering the program, keep in mind now that we'll be running all 3 of those courses next year because you'll have the incoming 9th graders that will be in the principles of biomed or the engineering design, and of course our sophomores in the next 2, and then ultimately our juniors engaged in those courses that are outlined in blue as well.
Mr. Chair, I would love at some point for the Project Lead the Way to actually get some college recognition for, I mean, as an engineer, I took probably 2 of those classes my freshman year. And I think about it, they're already going to have that. It's amazing. But I wish there was like an AP type thing that we could get.
We had, it's funny you bring it up because we had, there has been some discussions with Massasoit about trying to explore, especially when you get into those junior and senior courses, about really the potential of having the ability for college credit. I know that in some schools in Plymouth, in their Project Lead the Way program, that they partner with the community college as well. So we've been kind of having some conversations about what that would look like, but I think what we needed to do is see where this program took us and then be able to go back to the college to say, this is really what we'd like to see happen. But it is interesting because there are many schools that have had a longer period of time with Project Lead the Way that you're starting to see those articulation agreements between the high schools and the colleges as well. Please, Mr.
If I don't mind. How's the enrollment in those programs?
So the enrollment actually is quite good. So this year in the first level 1 courses, we're maxing out at about 24 in a class.
Nice.
And what we've done in some cases is we, in the biomedical, because we're doing it at the CP and at the honors level, that we've had to combine some of those courses together because when you took the honors in the CP, you were looking at about 24 to 28 students. So in many ways, we ended up combining the 2 and had one section of it to have all those students together. So all those students that were in the year 1 of biomed all went into year 2, for the most part. I think we might have lost maybe 2 students to scheduling conflict, or they just weren't interested in it. But for the most part, the numbers are
Strong.
quite good, yeah. The engineering a little bit smaller, but still this year's 9th grade, it's about maybe 18, 19 students in the class. The computer science for year 1, that one we knew was going to be a little bit smaller in scope just because of the nature of that course. But we're pretty certain that with this 3rd course that you see on this slide of the 3rd strand of Project Lead the Way, the computer science one, is that we're offering cybersecurity as the new course. So we're thinking that may start to kind of put a little peak of an interest for some of those students who may be interested in that, but they need to be able to do those other courses as well to get the fundamentals of that as well. So we're pretty excited to see where cybersecurity takes us next year. No major changes in foreign language. However, there's new frameworks that are getting ready to be released for foreign language. And you'll notice the fact we're no longer calling it foreign language. So in all of our documentation moving forward, it will be called world languages, and that has been under the recommendation of the DESE. So that is their major change from the program for next year. Where you're seeing a tremendous amount of change, and this is really indicative of the brand new high school, is in the fine arts. And it was really a perfect entry point for really a lot of the work of just the ease of being able to create brand new courses that will immediately be able to use the facility as we transition into that space a year from now. Some of the areas that you're going to see in the new courses, there's been a lot of work. Mrs. Duggan is, what's important to note is that she's been, she is in charge of, she's one of the art ambassadors for the new frameworks that are coming out for the state. So she is traveling really extensively around the region, working with teachers about this transition of the new framework. And one of the things that has evolved out of that through the College Board as well is really what we do with our APs in the fine arts. Because you can build the fundamentals of the visual arts in for an art student who would be taking an advanced placement, but then they can branch off into different directions based upon the medium that they're looking to do. So in this case, because of the new building, we're going to be launching for the first time an advanced placement digital photography class. So they'll start to do all the fundamental work that they need to do that will be common with everybody else. And then they'll have this ability to go into this very specialized opportunity. And with the digital imaging lab that's coming on board at the high school, we'll be able to engage in that kind of course. So we're pretty excited with that. Creating and responding to art. This is a brand new course, and I'm going to couple it. If you go look at the deleted courses, we eliminated the drawing for beginners. It had just run its course, no pun intended. But ultimately, we really needed to look at how do we create a survey. Because of now our ability to move to really a 3-dimensional program in art, it was really an opportunity for the art teachers to say, what is it that we want to expose our students to? Because you have students who will come in who really like art, and they're an artist, and they want to go through all of those, as many art classes as they can. But then you also have students who come in, and they may not be the artists, but how do you engage them in the importance of art? So this creating and responding to art is really, for lack of better, a survey, an art survey course that we're going to be running. And it will allow for those entry-level 9th graders in particular to be able to take a course that will get them going in many ways for their work in art. How to work with clay, because of the kiln that's going into the new building, we'll finally be able to offer a pottery class. So we're offering it to grades 10 through 12, and the hope would be that in the spring semester that course will be able to run. We think it's going to be quite popular with the students. And then lastly, again, because of the transition from the 2-dimensional work that we were pretty much, doing, to now the ability to move to a 3-dimensional experience, that last elective that is there is taking those fundamental students in grades 9 and then bringing them into the next phase of really the transition from a 2D art to a 3-dimensional as well. And then just really redesigned courses. There was a lot of work done in the studio because of just the changes in pathways of really making sure the fact it was reflective of all the changes. And ultimately, the couple of the 2D photography class is really still the studio, AP Studio Art. But now you notice that it's really an emphasis on drawing. So it's just kind of a updating of really where the trends are taking it. No changes in theater at this time. I think as you'll start to see more of maybe a technical experience as we evolve in the new school, especially with the auditorium. But as of this time, there's no changes in the art. The other major changes is in music. Through the work of Mr. Pitsley and Mr. Converse, they really have done an outstanding job of really maximizing the musician that will enter in grade 9 and how they will be when they leave us in grade 12. We took the whole music theory program and music theory 1 and 2, and it's been completely redesigned and embedded into the very first course that will be offered to all 9th grade is the fundamentals of music. So many times the music theory class is not something they would be taking till their higher years at the high school, but ultimately we're starting them off with there in the 9th grade, and it's a 9 through 12 elective. But what Mr. Pitsley in particular is hoping is that those entry-level 9th graders will start with the fundamentals of music and then be able to go through their pathways of really where they see themselves. Because of the new facility and the new music lab in the new building, is sound engineering and audio production, and so that will be really quite an exciting course. Music business, the impact on role of music in society, and there's been a lot of work through the work of Mr. Pitsley in particular of really trying to find courses that are going to be able to take maybe the non-musician and really give them some experience as well. And the deleted course, simply just because it was time, is American popular music. So that is now going to be infused with the music business and the impact of the role of music in society as well. PE, just 2 major updates. Last year you approved the ability for us to have courses in PE, and I have to tell you what an unbelievable difference this has been. To take a student who's not an athlete or is really who is challenged by the physical activity or the anxiety around that, to be able to be in a course and do programs like Fit for Life, where it's more of a classroom experience, and they're still be able to achieve their PE requirement and slowly be able to bring them into the gym and into the fold and into maybe some more active courses, it has made a really significant difference. So the new course that we're offering this for next year is sports medicine and exercise science, and that will be the newest elective that will be offered to grades 11 and 12. The other thing that's important to note is that for many years in every program of studies, we brought to you a health course, and it was always pending budget. But this year we decided to take it out because one of the things that we've done is we've taken many of the major topics of health and have woven it into those courses. So we really feel the fact that we've been able to give students, I wouldn't say a comprehensive health program, but we're certainly giving them elements of the most critical things that these students need to be able to do and know. And that is now woven into these courses as well.
Mr. Chair, I will say firsthand, as I engage my children, that when you say woven in, that wellness piece that I've always talked about,
Right.
that you've woven into these classes are phenomenal. The things that my daughter will come home and ask me about, it's great. They're really, it's really more than just a gym class. It's no gym class. It's more. It's really a health class, which is great.
Absolutely.
A wellness class.
Yep.
I call it a wellness class.
So thanks to Mr. Sylvia and the PE teachers, because they really have re-identified what physical education looks like, which is wonderful. The early college programming, we're just very grateful for this partnership with Massasoit, and I always say to families, and one of the greatest things the town of Middleborough did was bring a college to town, and the ability for the Jim Braga pathway and early childhood criminal justice, and of course our internships as well. Just really what's next. So we begin the process of engaging our students, of identifying what it is they want to do. So starting next week on the 14th and 15th, our guidance counselors from the high school will spend 2 full days here at the middle school working with all of the 8th graders. Through the collaboration of the guidance counselors at the high school and the counselors here at the middle school, they have an entire plan in place of where every one of the students in the 8th grade will meet with their guidance counselor at the high school. So to begin the relationship, and the transition begins now from middle school to high school. The scheduling process will officially begin. We still have some work that we're doing in the program of studies of the final edits and setting up of the online experience in Aspen. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to officially open Aspen to make sure the fact that students can get in and begin their scheduling. And we're ready to start communication of that through the email system to all families, grades 8 through 11, of when that portal will open. And then also all the materials that will go home. We're doing all of that today, actually, for the 8th graders next week as well. The program of studies night, this is going to look really different for us because we have used this as our open house every year. And so always one of the first days in February, we have an open house where all of our faculty has to be there. We rebranded it this year, and it's now going to be a program of studies night. So what's going to be really special about this night is all the teachers will be there as well. So what we're envisioning, it will be an grades 8 through 11 experience for all of our families. And they'll be able to come in, learn a little bit about what is happening at the high school with courses and pathways and so on. But then they'll be able to go through the building and actually go and see all the math teachers together and learn about math and see what their offerings are and meet the potential algebra teacher or the AP teacher, whatever it may be. And that will be the entire faculty that will be here that night. So it's one of our 5 nights that we have to have, and that's what we decided to do this year. So at first it was only going to be an 8th grade experience, and then we really did a lot of talking about, maybe it would actually be good that if we had it for all grades. So that's going to be on February 4th.
Mr. Chair, would it be wrong if someone says to me, my 8th grader is going to go to Bristol, Plymouth, and so I don't need to do this. I've been saying, go, do your schedule. You never know. It doesn't hurt.
I would highly recommend it because every 8th grader that is here will build a schedule for the high school, whether they're coming or not. And what we do is we archive it. So if they decide they're not coming to the high school, we hold on to their schedule and it's archived. And then there's been times where a student has decided they wanted to come back, and then their schedule can be brought back into play again. So we engage every 8th grader here, regardless if they're coming or not.
Parents to go to that night too.
Absolutely.
Paul,
Absolutely.
can I add to that too? The other thing I'd say to parents too, Brian, is we know many parents may send their child to, for example, Bristol Plymouth for freshman year. But the way Bristol Plymouth determines the pathway they go into is solely by grades. And some kids haven't been able to choose the pathway they wanted, and they've come back starting sophomore year. So at least they'll have gone through the process and understand what that process is. So if for some reason they do come back, they have a sense of what things look like.
Yep, absolutely. And Mr. Stevens.
Yeah, so, as an 8th grade father, the scheduling happens on the 17th to 31st, and then why is the program of studies night after that?
Because what we wanted to do is that we may not be opening up, the scheduling officially opens, that we're thinking it's going to be more of the work we're doing with students, because it may actually be that the portal will not open for actual scheduling until early February.
Oh, okay.
So, and the reason, we had already set that night anyway in our calendar for February 4th, and we had marketed that back in the summer. So we decided that it may actually be the students potentially might have already signed up for something, but that also doesn't mean there's so many opportunities for changing in a schedule during the spring months that really by the time we get to June, the chances of a student's schedule remaining exactly what they signed up for sometimes changes. So we kind of know that we may be opening the portal before that event, which is kind of a little bit different. But we also thought to ourselves, you know what, it may also be not a bad idea to do it after they've signed up for something, because they may sign up for something thinking they want it, and then we end up, when they decide they don't want it, is when they're in it. And sometimes if we can do it maybe ahead of time, it may help them guide a decision as a family, or say, you know what, I really think you should have signed up for that, and the ability to make that happen too.
Right.
So, and just the last piece, this is, I'm very proud of the guidance department, because they were given the challenge of ensuring that every single one of their students is met with, and that they do the 2 days down here at the 8th grade, meeting and greeting with their new students. But then for the dates that you will see there, they will meet with every single one of their students. And it is through collaboration with the PE department that while the PE department is closing down the semester, that quarter, because those days are the last days of the quarter in PE, they will be cycling students into a classroom to meet with their guidance counselor. And that will be, so every first semester PE student will meet with their guidance counselor. And then the 3 days you see, January 28th through the 31st, is all the second semester PE students. So that by the time we're done, we've met with every single one of our students. Questions or comments?
I have several.
Please.
Mainly comments, but I think they're important. The first is a question, Paul. Adding human geography, how many AP courses do we have for students to be able to take that?
With the human geography and with the two-dimensional, with the digital photography, that will put us at about, I think that will put us at 19.
Wow, that's fantastic. So thank you. The other piece, when looking through the program of studies, I think it's important to note, for example, I'm going to use the new term world languages. In the world language piece, Spanish goes up to Spanish 4. But you and I both know that that's not where Spanish ends. Depending on the student and depending on who they are and what level they're at, there has been many times that the Spanish department and the French department and the Russian department has created extra courses for students to make sure that their needs are met, especially if you have a student that's gifted in the language. They don't, we could have a student place into Spanish 2 and be done their sophomore year. And we don't want that to happen if they want to go on. And so a lot of times these things have been extended, and I think that's really important. I also think it's important, I'm going to mention Owen again, because we have the capstone program. And last year, Owen became one of our first graduates of the capstone program and get his extra diploma. So Owen, congratulations for that. I know Mr. Brannigan mentioned it at the AP rally this year, but we did want to make mention of that because that's another program that we're very proud of. So Paul, the last question I have for you is sort of for this year, when you start the NESIAC report, it's going to be a lot less writing for you because constantly you have to defend the building you're in, and you're not going to have to do that anymore.
Right. It has been the ability for teachers to be able to create courses that they know can be sustainable in a building has been really quite exciting. So just using the art teachers as an example, they've been able to make miracles in their spaces that they've had, but to know that there will be a full digital imaging lab and 2 really very comprehensive art rooms, I think that the ability for just that program alone to be able to do the work they're going to be doing, the pottery class alone, we think will be a tremendous hit amongst our students, but really just the creation of our staff now. And I think it's important to note that next Tuesday, our instructional leadership team is doing a full day together, as we do every January. And every year we write our accountability plan, and there's been many years we brought that to you for review and for awareness. But we decided that this year we're not doing that this year, and that actually what we're doing is strategic planning. So every content area will be doing a 3 to 5 year strategic plan of really where do we see ourselves going in the next 3 to 5 years. And not only in terms in curriculum and instruction and assessment, but looking at things like rigor in programming and relevance and making sure the fad degree we want to see our students go. So we're really excited by that work, and I think a lot of that is because we have the ability now to create, and where we were always maintaining, and now we are creating the opportunities that we have. So, so we're excited by that.
And I also think it's the opportunity, to, as you said, the space, because, for example, just in the fine arts department, we moved from just an auditorium to a stage in a black box and to a stage outside, where it allows different opportunities and also different schedulings that we couldn't do. And that's the amazing part to me, too.
Well, we have an auto shop conversion, black box, currently. Which,
And Paul, I can't thank you enough. Since I came on the committee, Brian and I have often talked about the wellness program, and you've spent a lot of time with us talking about the wellness piece and how that was going to play out, and that's fantastic, and thank you very, very much for that. Other questions or comments? Mr. Oakland?
It's always so exciting to see all of the courses. I mean, there was nothing named TV production or biomedical engineering or any of these things in my high school, and it's exciting to hear. And actually, just a quick story before I ask my question, very quick. I just went yesterday on my lunch break to go visit a bio 3D printing company in Boston, and when I mentioned that our high school had a bioengineering program, he literally stopped me and he said, "Wait, your high school?" And I said, yeah, and this is a biologist that is just a few years out of college, so it's not that long ago that he was in high school. So something that I was really proud of in the moment, to be from a community like this. But I wanted to ask you, how many communities approximately have Project Lead the Way grants around the state?
I
or country?
I think there are many, or there's more and more coming. The number that I have, I know that Dr. Gates had attended a Project Lead the Way conference back in the fall, and we were one of 25 schools that were recognized for our final assessments in Project Lead the Way. And I think there's quite a few that have come on board. Now, all of them are at very different levels and different stages of that grant. But I think more and more schools are becoming interested in engaging with Project Lead the Way.
And just one more question, if I may. Is there, this one's kind of out there, but is there, it struck me when you were talking about the health program pending budget, is there a course that you kind of dream of bringing someday, and the only kind of hurdle to get there is budget? I'm sure there's probably hundreds,
Well,
right?
I think there's probably a ton of them. One that is in the program of studies that we're really quite excited by, and we never would have been able to do this ever, is the Project Adventure class in physical education. It will not run this year because it needs to be actually installed once the gym is done. But once they were able to come in and build that on the roof or the ceiling of the gym, we feel that's a course that we never would have been able to bring to life in the current space. So I think just the ability, because of this new facility, the ability for us to think outside the box a lot more and to be able to make things happen is significant. So yes, there's those courses we always wanted to do. I think we're finally going to be able to start chipping away at these courses that we really would like to do. And I know that as we go further in this building, in the sciences, you'll start to see more. I think many of the content areas felt we need to get into place and get going, and then really start to see really what those opportunities are. So I think you'll start to see things coming to life a little bit.
Cool. And Mr. Chair, if I could just clarify, I think from what I hear, we're very lucky to have the partnership that we do with the town and get the budget that we get. But I think for me personally, it's important for me to know kind of what are those dream courses that someday we might want to offer if only we could pull the money together. So just want to make that clarification. We're very lucky with the new building coming and with the budget that we do have. So,
Mr. Oakley, can I make a suggestion to come to budget subcommittee meeting and you'll hear about the dreams that we all like?
Mr. Chair, I would love to be a
Absolutely.
member of the budget subcommittee.
So you're more than welcome to come and see the dreams and have to say no.
Through you, Mr. Chair, when you go to visit the wishing well with Mr. Brannigan, bring a whole pocket full of change.
Okay.
Okay?
Fair enough.
Please, Mr. Giovanni.
Is, one of the items that we talk about, the math and the requirement for math, if you're going to go to most competitive colleges, as we spell it out, and I have to say, I love the inclusion of the UMass, Boston, Dartmouth, Lowell requirements, just so that it's there. Can't say we didn't tell you, but should it be something that we look at just making it a requirement for grade 12 math for everybody, just in case?
I would say to you respectfully, no, and here's why. When the Board of Higher Education made it a requirement, schools immediately went and made it a requirement. And when we started our journey, like everybody else, we did a little bit of homework with it. And what we found was through other schools is that they made this requirement that really wasn't for everybody. So you were taking a student who was not a college-bound student and making him or her take a 12th grade math. So what we do is we do it much more personally, so that the majority of our students are taking 12th grade math. But if a student is not taking a 12th grade math, then we know why they're not taking the 12th grade math, and there's been a conversation about it. If a student says, I really don't want to take a math, and there's some even inkling that they could be potentially college-bound, they're taking the 12th grade math. What's just interesting is if you look at the numbers of seniors in grade 12 math, it's the majority of the senior class, just because I think we just kind of make it part of their expectation, but we wanted to have a little bit of the wiggle room that we weren't taking a student and forcing them to take a course that they didn't need.
And I think I actually asked that question way back a few years ago, that same exact question.
Yep.
And it goes back to every student will see the guidance counselor
Right.
within those 3 days and 3 days.
That's right.
Can I also add too, Paul, that I think is important? is up until you made the changes for this coming year. For a student who was very good at math, there was also the potential that they had maxed out the higher end math by their junior year. And so forcing them to take a math would essentially, in some cases, force them to take a freshman math. And so I know several kids who, following Paul's advice, took courses at local community colleges with the dual enrollment that were allowed.
Right.
So they took a math course in college for $100. That's going to cost them $1,500 a year later. And they were able not only to do well in those courses, but also to get college credit for those courses.
In the personal finance class at Massasoit and the accounting 1 and 2 course at Massasoit counts as a 12th grade math as well. So for some students who have maxed out that potentially may not want to go on their own and do that additional course, that we have vetted it enough that those Massasoit courses count as the 12th grade math as well. So.
Any other questions for Paul?
I was just wondering if, or what process you have for maybe engaging with the students or the parents on wishes for classes when you're setting up a program of studies like this.
So, for many times, the departments do it themselves. So they work with their students to identify maybe interest. And to be honest, there really hasn't been the ability to do it, because there is only so much you could do in that space. I think the abilities now for us of what's coming will allow for us to be able to engage in very different conversations about really where students' interests take them. And some of the work that we're starting to do of really looking at senior year and what senior year could be and what it could look like begins that whole process about that really personalizing an experience for them and finding their passion. And then really how do we get them to really engage in that too. So there's just been some preliminary things that we started talking about of really looking at the 12th grade
Sure.
year.
Sounds like exciting times to come. Thanks.
Any other questions? Paul, before you go, do you have something to hand out to us today?
I do. I just have a copy for you.
Sure. So just so everyone knows what Paul's giving me tonight, for those who remember, we formed a committee through our contract, which is members of the union and members that we've put together to discuss the scheduling at the high school. We're not going to talk about the results of this, and we're going to bring that up at the next meeting. But my understanding from having a conversation with Paul, that yesterday committee voted they were entirely in favor of not changing the schedule for next year because of everything that would entail. And Paul will be back next meeting. I've asked him to invite all members of this committee to come and have conversations with us, so we'll have a bigger conversation then. So I just wanted everyone to know.
There's a lot involved.
Great.
Okay.
Great idea.
So if I may, the memo that you have outlines what we as a committee made a commitment to do. So just so when you see it as members, you'll see what the committee walked away from with it as well.
And I'm going to ask us to accept their report, and that will entail us going back and having a further conversation with the leadership meeting. So everyone knows.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Paul.
Brannigan.
We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Mr. Chair, next on my list is a message really from the Community Resource Center, which I mentioned earlier, is sponsoring through a very generous grant from McLean Hospital, a workshop for parents coming up on February 15th. And it's called Executive Functioning Parent Workshop. And she just asked me to announce this tonight. It's going to be posted on the website. I'll send this to you in my communication to you tomorrow so you're aware of it and sort of spread the word. We'll spread the word through email, through parents. But it's a workshop for parents on kids these days are juggling a lot of balls in the air. I know from being a parent, I have a 5th grade daughter who plays piano and plays saxophone and swims and plays softball and is interested in lacrosse and has a lot of things going, but also has school and has Generations of Faith, which she has tonight at Sacred Heart Church, and there's a lot of balls in the air. And this is a workshop for parents to help them understand and help them organize kids for success. executive functioning is basically organizing for success. It's good with adults, it's good for planning for adults, it's good for planning for kids, but it's a great workshop. The teachers went through it at the beginning of the year, and it is February 15th again. It's going to be at the Berkland School at 6:30 p.m. So we'll get the word out on this. It's a group called Effective Effort Consulting. We're going to come in, and again, it's a generous grant from McLean Hospital, and a very large grant, which Megan Quirk wrote the grant. It helps support Interface, which is a referral service for every member of the Middleborough community. But this word will get out. She wanted to get this out tonight and asked me to relay that to the school committee tonight. So I've done that, and if anybody has any questions on that, I can certainly do that.
Mr. Chair, I was just wondering, is there an RSVP required, or do they just show up on the 15th, 6:30 at the Berkland?
Yeah, I believe they're going to probably ask for some type of commitment, but it's a very large auditorium, and they're hoping to fill it.
Gotcha.
But it is something that the teachers were very pleased with the workshop that they did. And basically, in their email, the folks from Effective Effort Consulting define this as executive function and self-regulation skills are the mental processes that enable us to plan, focus, attention, remember instructions, and juggle multiple tasks successfully. And it says, please join us. So, for all those people that have all those kids that have all those balls in the air, come on down, and it's a great learning workshop, learning opportunity for parents, again, courtesy of McLean Hospital. Thank you. If no more questions, my next item of business here is to sort of hand over the mic to Sarah Hickey, our Director of Business and Finance, who's going to give us some important dates coming up and some updates on the business and finance of the school system. Ms. Hickey.
Thank you. I'm going to start off by talking about the fiscal year 21 budget calendar. So it's January. It's the time of year where I told my family I'll see you in February. This is budget season for me, and now that it's my second budget season, they know what to expect. I sent out the budget detail sheets, the spreadsheets, to the principals and the directors at the end of November, and they had the month of December to work on their requests for the upcoming year, and those were returned to me last week. I'm in the process of compiling all the pieces of the things that came back to me, and I'm also awaiting information from the town about how much money they're going to give us. So I'm in the process of putting everything together and compiling a budget book, and we have budget subcommittee scheduled for the last week of January and the first week of February, where we'll go through the budget book and meet with the principals and the directors about their requests. I have set aside the second week of February for callbacks in case there's anybody that the budget subcommittee wants to meet with the second time to ask more clarifying questions. And then our budget hearing is scheduled for February 27th here. Any questions on that?
Good.
Okay. The second thing for me to talk about tonight is the fiscal end-of-year report. So the two, I told my family there's going to be 2 times of the year you don't see me. One is January and one is September. And for me this year, the end-of-year report took much more than just September. It was my first end-of-year report, and Superintendent Lynch asked me to talk a little bit about this end-of-year report. The Department of Education gives me a worksheet, a spreadsheet document that I download from their portal, and this document, this workbook document, has pretty much every bell and whistle that you could imagine someone would build into a spreadsheet. It's got probably 10 tabs on it, and each tab has 35 columns and 3,000 rows. And sheet 1 talks to sheet 3, and sheet 2 and information feeds back and forth. It's quite a sophisticated document. It's above my ability to create something like that. But I found the working with the document to be fairly straightforward, not easy. straightforward, and it was an arduous task, because what the State Department of Education asks me to do is to go backwards from the budget presentation. So if you think about the budget presentation that you got in February from Kathy Piatelli 2 years ago about the FY19 budget, what I just went through is every single line by line, what dollar amount was spent where on what, and dividing it up by all sorts of different categories to give the breakdowns back to the State Department of Education. I learned an awful lot. One of the things I learned is that there are many, many, many pieces that I have to rely on other people for. One of the pieces of the report that I have to do divides up our students that ride regular education transportation into the categories of those that live within 1.5 miles and those that live beyond 1.5 miles from the school. It's not something I have the data for. I had to find out where the data comes from, and there were only about 150 to 200 of those types of instances where I had to find out. The data is pretty clear once you get it. So I took quite a bit of time finding out and writing notes for myself. I did have I'm grateful for my mentor, Dr. Felicia Michella, who is the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance in Abington. She worked with me on this, and one of the first things she said to me is, when you work on your FY19 end-of-year report, have Kathy Piatelli's FY18 end-of-year report next to you. And so I had all of the paper documentation from FY18, and I had all of the digital documentation that had been left for me. And on the screens of my computer, I had my report and Kathy's report, and working my way through it. So it was a long process. I learned a lot. It was submitted December 12th. The next steps with the end-of-year report is to find and submit any edits. I spoke with Steve Dooney, the town treasurer, at a meeting on Tuesday. He had a question for me about something on it. I have to go back and check, and if there's an error, I have to fix it. We're also going to be audited. Last year, the auditor found some errors from the previous business manager, and I had to edit that report last year. At least this year, I'll know what I'm editing. Last year, I had to ask very specific questions. What cell, what line, do you want me to put what number in? This year, I have a greater level of confidence. Next year, I hope to have this done I told my family they wouldn't see me for the month of September, and I was going to go on vacation in October. But the report is submitted in December. So maybe next year I'll go on vacation in October. Questions about end-of-year report?
And just so everyone understands, Sarah does the end-of-year report. The superintendent and I both have to sign the end-of-year report, and it gets submitted to the state. And the town sees the end-of-year report because it's part of a lot of their information is included in the end-of-year report.
Mr. Chair, a recent country song was, when was the last time you did something for the first time?
Exactly.
And this was the first time she did something, and it's the last first time, so.
But it's also one of those things, when there are things that you do all of the time, you get comfortable with them, and they become second nature. There are still things like working with the municipal finance system. I know my login by heart now. I can get on, but I have detailed notes because I don't do that every single day. It's a once a week or a once every 2 weeks. The end of year report is a once a year. So I have detailed notes to myself about where these numbers came from, and I just hope it goes a bit smoother next year. Now I know where all the pieces come from. So, the last thing I'm going to talk about tonight is a transportation update, and I'm going to talk about two different types of transportation. As you know, we have our regular ed transportation, which is a contract with First Student. We are in year 3 of a 3-year contract with First Student. We have an option, a year 4 option and a year 5 option. At our next school committee meeting, I'm going to be submitting a recommendation that we move forward and vote to exercise the year 4 option for the First Student. We've been happy with our relationship with First Student.
They're
So
the best in the country. Number one. It's hard to beat that. Sorry, I think of that every time. I'm like, we're the best in the country.
The second thing I wanted to talk about is our specialized transportation. This specialized transportation is for the students that are special ed students that are unable to ride the big yellow buses. And if you recall, early summer, late spring, I came to you and I requested to change the way we ran our specialized transportation department. We went from a full-time coordinator of transportation to 2 part-time positions, a coordinator of specialized transportation, and 2 dispatchers. What ended up happening is when we interviewed for dispatchers, the best person available expressed that they were really interested in doing the morning shift and the afternoon shift. So instead of ending up with 3 people, we ended up with 2 people. But I really feel strongly that we have the best people there are. So our dispatcher's name is Judy Perry. Judy was a driver for many years in Carver, and she was just at the point in her career where driving, getting up every morning and getting out in the bus was not what she wanted to do anymore. So now she sits in the office and has the radio and communicates with the drivers and helps things go very smoothly for us. And I think she's doing a great job. Our specialized transportation supervisor is Mary Jane Driscoll. Mary Jane is here tonight. I'm really excited about working with Mary Jane. She has quite a bit of experience in the transportation industry. I've learned so much from her, from working with her. Just over the past few months, for example, the other day we had vehicles. We purchased new vehicles, and the new vehicles were delivered, and they came to 30 Forest Street, and the gentleman said to me, "You need to sign off on these." And I said, I can't. I can, but I don't know what to look for. And I did know when I got onto the vehicles of what an integrated child seat looked like and what wasn't. I could figure that out, but there are specific details that I just wouldn't know. And Mary Jane came over and put the buses through their paces and checked out alarms and monitors and it's just something that I could have signed for something that wasn't adequate or wasn't correct, and so I'm thankful to have her. Another thing that has changed is we've moved the transportation department from the coordinator of transportation formerly was in a desk in the office at 30 Forest Street. When we have 2 people now in the role, we just couldn't cram one more person into that space. So they have been moved to the 3rd floor of the Memorial Early Childhood Center and have set up a nice little suite, or you might want to think of it as a sweet little suite there's the desk for the dispatcher and the coordinator of transportation. There's a space to have mailboxes for the drivers. There's a space for drivers to come in and use a computer to check their district email, and it's more of a welcoming place for the drivers when they come in, and they seem to be happy with it.
And a training room right next door where Mary Jane's gonna conduct training.
Yes. And speaking of training, the other thing I'm really excited about, one of the biggest issues we have had in the past is a lack of drivers. And our transportation coordinator last year spent a lot of time out on the road driving vehicles and doing runs because we didn't have substitute drivers. And Mary Jane has done an excellent job of recruiting and training drivers to the point that we have substitute drivers now. And when we had the new vehicles delivered, we were able to add routes and we're looking to take back some of the routes that we've given out to private companies, which will be a cost savings. So, any questions, anything about transportation?
That's awesome. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mary Jane and Judy are two very different people, but have gotten along very well. They both attended Middleborough schools. Happen to graduate with two of their brothers. They also happen to be sisters. One had worked a long time for the Carver school system, and one had worked a long time for the Wareham school system. Never really worked together, but they worked together very well with us. So, and Mary Jane was looking for someone to fill that position and didn't actively recruit her sister. Her sister saw it and said, "Well, what a great opportunity!" She applied on her own, and she was clearly the best candidate for the job. So.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report this evening.
Before you conclude the report, I did make a slight mistake. I jumped the gun. We normally approve the program of studies.
Yep.
Can I have a motion to approve the
So
program?
moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, and thankfully, I will not be harassed by the secretaries tomorrow morning, Mr. Brady.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda is presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. For MSBA, the highlights, we had a meeting yesterday. The highlights of the meeting are we are at 40% completion with about 3% of the contingency actually spent, which is very, very good. We are still, as I talked to you about last time, we're still about 18 days behind, primarily because of holidays. Fontaine hasn't come back with what they're going to do to make up for that yet. That's, I believe, tomorrow. Starts that process with our people, so I'll have a better idea of that in our next month's meeting after our meeting.
They're going to be working some weekends.
Yeah, they're going to be
Yes.
working some
You're gonna
weekends,
start seeing
probably
more.
from the duration of, the weekend work right now is going to be on bleachers.
The
Grandstands, and it won't, there's not a lot of noise, and it won't affect neighborhoods, and everything's on the side away from neighbors, so.
And the grandstands, as it was presented last night, the grandstands schedule for completion is September 1st of 2020, yet they're kind of pushing to see if they can get them done before for spring sports, which
Yeah,
would be
and this is
which would be great.
This is a company that traveled a great distance. They travel as
Yes.
a group. And with a request to Fontaine Brothers, they are going to work Sundays so they can cut the days down. That they'd rather work, as it was noted in the meeting yesterday, they'd rather work than hang around a hotel room
And they can do that.
and waste a day.
They can do that under the prevailing wage requirements. You can work, steel workers do this all the time. They'll work 14 days in a row, and then they'll have 27 days off, or however it works. But that's how a lot of these companies do it. They'll work straight through, get the work done, and move on to the next project. The other thing is that they're trying to get things closed in, and once they do, they said things are going to start picking up speed even on the inside. You won't even see it, but they'll start getting the finishes done. The spray
Fire retardant.
retardant is being sprayed throughout part of it, so they're working hard on that, which is good to hear. It sounds crazy, but it looks like a lot has gotten done. If you really look at the videos, go online, take a look. It's amazing to see what's happening. And we're still waiting for some steel. Happens.
Any other questions or comments about that? Mr. Huntley?
Mr. Chair, I guess I'll just ask the standard question. We're still on schedule or reasonably on schedule?
We're 18 days off.
And that was all because of the weather stuff we talked about before, right?
We're still waiting for
Yep.
an update on how we're gonna make up that time.
Yep. But as you mentioned in previous meetings, that doesn't mean anything's gonna, we have
So-
allotted time for that.
Right, so just so everyone understands again, the turnover of the building is sometime in October to us. So again, 18 days would bring us well within the time frame that we've established for when we're gonna open the building.
Great. And then the second part of that, same standard question, budget,
We are way under budget.
way under budget. And I heard you say 3% of contingency amount spent?
So we have a contingency line items that were built into the budget, so when we do change orders, and we do change orders quite frequently, change orders come to us in the forms of, when the project went out, we can look at the contractor and the architect, go back and forth with, hey, you can do it this way, and either save money, and so some of the change orders come back to us with a savings, or we would recommend that you, for example, increase the pipe width, go from 16 to 20, because that's gonna save you problems down the end, and that's a price, a plus that we have to pay for, so those type of things. Now,
Even
there
the
are
controller.
pieces on the change order in which the architect and the construction firm disagree what was put into the plans, and they have to work that out and arbitrate the decision. Other things, as we progress, that the schools come to, and Mr. Brannigan will say, or Ryan will say, perfect example of that is, if you looked at the controls for the new gym, it was a key control. It involved 12 different places to do different things, to move down nets, to move up, so we
Batting
went with
cage,
a one
everything.
single control function that you could do everything while standing there, rather than walk around the gym and with a key and move 12 different.
For those 12, you had to have 12 RTUs put in so that it control it, so that the controller would control the other 12.
Gotcha.
We already owned the punch pad for one item. It was yet the other controllers to control them all off one. But it was literally, you have to do one thing, then the next thing, then put the hoops down, or put the hoops up. So it really made sense. But at the time, when it was designed, it was a savings, you know?
Yeah.
You can save money by doing it this way. So I don't want to say you're trying to save money, but we were trying to save money everywhere we could. And then these change orders, when they come in, to say they're scrutinized by some of us is an understatement, because we scrutinize every little thing. So,
And to give you another example of what we've done, the design was for the backstops of all the baseball and softball fields. It was a state-of-the-art design that most schools have incorporated. What we found out from conversations with most schools was the way these things were designed, when the ball hit the very bottom, it ricocheted out to the field of play. It could hit the catcher or umpire or the kid at bat. And so we made a change to deaden the bottom, so when the ball comes down, it sort of sits there as opposed to ricochets out into the field. So these are things you find out after the fact and you pick up as you go along.
Cool, that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we don't have any policy update. There's a couple things about a new hire. Mr. Clattenburg is an English teacher, and there's 2 field trips going to the Cyterian and the Whaling Museum. New Bedford's getting a lot of our business. Middleborough had a whaling museum. The kids could come here. Any other questions or comments?
We do have a museum of archaeology,
Not a whale.
not a whale.
national.
That's very good. Any comments or questions before Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn? The next meeting is 1:23.
So moved.
Very second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Have a great day.